The governor, in his budget address, and you, Madam Secretary, during your budget stakeholder briefing, highlighted the False Claims Act and stated that passing it was important to able to reduce and prosecute fraud in Pennsylvania. Several years ago, I believe it was around 2019, 2020, then Attorney General Josh Shapiro stated at a news conference that Pennsylvania likely has upwards of $3 billion in fraud and improper payments within our Medicaid program alone. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I was not here in 2019, and so I can't speak to that number or that comment. What I can tell you is that our program integrity team works extremely hard. In this past year, we have $486 million in cost recoveries or cost avoidances, and we continue to be very aggressive in that work. We are regularly referring behavior that looks suspicious to us to OSIG or to the Attorney General's office because, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have the ability to investigate. And this is something that we take very seriously. We also recently had the most recent payment error rate report for the Medicaid program published. It was literally just published last week. It normally comes out every 3 years in the fall, but it was delayed because of the federal budget impasse. And that report showed that our error rate for the review year of 2025 in our Medicaid program was 0.26%. The national standard was 6.12%. So in the time that I have been here, Senator, this is the work that my team and I are doing.
I appreciate that. We all understand and we know that when taxpayer dollars for improper payments, of course, improper payments, for those who don't know what they are, mean that people are receiving benefits who are not eligible for benefits, which means that the people who need the benefits aren't getting them. So that's really, really concerning. And so those numbers,
Yeah, Senator,
those numbers sound very good. Which industries do you expect there to be fraud? Which industries have you targeted with your department in your tenure as secretary?
I was actually just going to sort of go in that same direction. I think what's really important for folks to understand is that the majority of fraud that is committed is by providers. It is by providers. It is not by recipients. The amount of recipient fraud is pretty small, relatively. It may be higher actual numbers, but like literally people, but the dollar value is really modest compared to provider fraud. And some of the areas where we're very, very focused is on our efforts to enact electronic visit verification in our home and community-based services. We now have pretty good compliance with that. This is a system that requires the home care worker to document that they're physically in a place when they say they are there doing those services. And we are already have been able to use that system to find where people are saying they're in two places at the same time and started to crack down on that. So that's just one example of a system that is now up and running that was not a couple years ago. And we are going to continue to enhance systems like that to make sure that we are catching every bit that we possibly can. I wish people were more honest. Unfortunately, there are always going to be people who try to commit fraud.
And if I could,
and if you see something, it's always so important to say something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It is really incumbent on all of us. And I have limited time, as noted by the little clock in front of you. I think, I appreciate the document that you provided to each of us here today. In light of what we have seen occurring in Minnesota with those billions of dollars in fraud, fake daycare centers, we're seeing this happen different places around the country. Has your department done an analysis on how the legislation that I'm working on with Senator Lindsey Williams and Senator Chris Dush that would create a False Claims Act in Pennsylvania, have you contemplated how it would reduce fraud in your department across a whole wide swath of programs that you are responsible for and administer?
Yeah, so I personally have not had a chance to do a deep dive into the proposed legislation, but I will say that we welcome all tools to help reduce fraud in our programs.
And if you can get to that point, it would be really helpful and very much appreciated, because I think it would be good for us to understand the estimated amount of savings that could be achieved with such legislation. And with that, I will turn it back to the chairman. Thank you very
We'll be
much,
happy to
Madam
take a look at that.
Secretary.
Chairman, could I clarify something? So just to make sure we're on the same page, so improper payments are not necessarily a reflection just of eligibility determinations that are made incorrectly. They can mean that a payment was too high or too low. In our payment error rate measures that will be, I think they're published now, the eligibility rate error was 0.01%.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.